This will be a very controversial and very interesting video. On my channel, I talk a lot about tragic events. Most of them are related to nuclear weapons, and this video is no exception. Earlier I told about very unusual find Tissel Princess, which age was determined as several hundreds millions years. Think about it, several 100 million years. Disputable of course, but this point of view exists and I could not miss this find. That video received a huge number of reactions, both positive and negative. You can watch this video, I have posted a link in the description to this video. What will I talk about in this video? We will talk about Kyshtym Dwarf. In the last video, I told you about the tragic events that took place in Kyshtym. The nuclear contamination that this area received is very strong. The Kyshtym Dwarf, Alyoshenka, is the mummified body of a humanoid found near Kyshtym. This story was distinguished from other similar stories about aliens by a huge amount of video and photographic material, as well as eyewitness interviews. In July 1996, in a small village near Kyshtym, pensioner Tamara Prosperina went to get water from a forest well. The elderly woman suffered from mental illness and was registered with a psychiatrist. She lived alone, her only son was serving time in prison for theft, and her daughter-in-law visited her once a week. Only her neighbor Tamara Naumova visited Prosperina every day, helping with household chores. The settlement was small and not particularly prosperous. Those who were better off had long gone to town to earn money, and the rest were either deep elderly or drank heavily. According to Prosperina, she heard a strange call in the woods and, following it, found a tiny creature under a tree. According to another version, Prosperina found it in a cemetery. She wrapped the creature in a handkerchief and brought it home. It turned out that Prosperina had been absent for 3 days. She lodged a small creature in his room, called it Alyoshenka, and all interested said that this is her son. She fed Alyoshenka with sweets and put him to bed. Her neighbor Naumova confirmed that the creature really lived at Prosperina's place, took food, and even tried to talk, making faint whistling sounds. The neighbors, however, mistaking the pensioner's words for another exacerbation of mental illness, called a psychiatric ambulance, and Prosperina was hospitalized. Although she told her story many times, no one believed her. As it turned out, Prosperina was not hallucinating. The mysterious creature was seen by her daughter-in-law Tamara and her sister-in-law Galina Alfarova. But busy women did not attach any special importance to the unknown creature, because there is no harm from it. It drinks water from a spoon, sucks caramel, curds, milk. Even care for him special did not require, as the baby did not have any distinctive sexual characteristics and the anus. From time to time his body was covered with sweat with a slight smell of cologne, and then Tamara Vasilievna simply wiped it with a cloth. My daughter-in-law told me how Prosperina showed her the baby. She took me to the bed. Look, there is something squeaking. Or rather, whistling. Mouth protruding tube, moving his tongue. It's scarlet and spatula-shaped. And you can see 2 teeth. I took a closer look. It didn't look like a baby. His head was brown, his body gray, and his skin had no veins. No eyelids in his eyes. And his eyes make sense. No genitals. And where there should be a belly button smooth place. Head is bulbous, no ears, just holes. And eyes like a kitten's. The pupil goes up and down. Long fingers and toes. The legs are folded in a trapeze. He squealed as he reacted to light and moving objects. His gaze was like that of a very sick person. The creature seemed to be suffering very much. Left in an empty house without the minimal care that his grandmother gave him, the baby died. But the house, though sealed up, was a godsend for Vladimir Nerdunov, the unemployed cohabitant of his sister-in-law, who was stealing and reselling scrap metal. He climbed into the house and found a tiny corpse, already strewn with some kind of maggots. The curiosity pleased him very much and the man washed it, dried it in the sun and put it in the refrigerator. Alyoshenka was discovered by the police during a search. The investigator of the KYSHTYMSKY Department of Internal Affairs, Captain of Justice Yevgeny Mokachev, was shocked by what he saw. For a long time I could not understand what it was. There came a kind of confusion. Before me lay approximately 25 centimeters long mummified corpse of a small humanoid creature. It is very difficult to give an unambiguous assessment of what lay before me, because its head had an unusual shape, helmet-shaped, consisting of 4 petals, which at the top joined into a single plate and formed a kind of comb. Its eye sockets were large in size. 2 small, barely visible teeth were visible on the front jaw. The forelimbs were crossed at the chest, and judging from them, they were as long as the lower limbs. The corpse was in a desiccated, wrinkled state, with many folds of skin. The smell from the mummy was not strong, but unpleasant. It is difficult to say what exactly it smelled like. Other witnesses described the smell as plastic. After that, many specialists have examined this corpse, pathologists and gynecologists, and they all claim that this is not a human corpse or a human baby. It looked very different. The skeletal and skull structure was not human at all. Even if some creature can mutate very strongly, it is impossible to this extent. The investigators of the Kyshtymsky Department of Internal Affairs made video and photo recordings, took statements, but did not know what to do next. The pathologist of the city morgue examined the Kyshtym dwarf in the presence of a paramedic and stated that at least 90% of it was not human. The skeletal structure of the humanoid was very different from that of a human, especially the bones of the pelvis, which is designed for both upright walking and on all fours. The forelimbs were also very different in length from human limbs. The hands were arranged as if they were feet. As can be seen, this creature was capable of moving in any conditions and in any way, overcoming any obstacle. The doctor said that in order to draw conclusions about the exact nature of this creature, a DNA examination is needed. In Moscow, the sensational tape was reviewed by experts who confirmed the conclusion of the pathologist Samishkin from Kyshtym: this is not a person. They all said that DNA analysis could fully confirm or refute their verdict, but that it would be necessary to find the Kyshtym dwarf. Only Yakov Galperin, director of the All-Russian Research Center for Traditional Folk Medicine, stated that the proportions of the head and body of the creature do not correspond to any of the types of aliens known to science or aliens from parallel worlds, and therefore it is possible that this child was mangled by atomic radiation. What else can be added? The remains interested ufologists, and since it was not a human corpse, Alyoshenka was handed over to them. For a long time, the mummy passed from hand to hand, and then disappeared. When the remains of the humanoid had already disappeared, a research team headed by ufologist V. Chernobrov arrived in Kyshtym. They found the cloth in which they swaddled Alyoshenka. It was given to the geneticists from the Institute of Russian Academy of Science. Biological substances taken from swaddling clothes contained human DNA with multiple pathologies. But ufologists, who do not want to give up the idea of an alien origin of the foundling, consider the results of the geneticist study dubious, because many people have had a hand in the matter. The interest in Kyshtym's humanoid Alyoshenka has not diminished even today. There are many versions of his origin, but the most popular are considered to be the following. September 29, 1957, at the Mayak Chemical Combine in the then top-secret city of Chelyabinsk 40, due to a failure of the cooling system of one of the containers with radioactive waste, self-heating occurred, resulting in an explosion. Several dozens of tons of highly radioactive waste were released into the air as high as 1 to 2 kilometers, forming a cloud that was later scattered over 23,000 square kilometers. It was the first major radiation accident on the territory of the USSR that directly and indirectly affected the lives and health of hundreds of thousands of people. 23 villages that were in the contamination zone were resettled and demolished. Kyshtym itself, which was 11 kilometers from the explosion site, was not affected. The radioactive trace mostly stretched northeast of the city, but it is quite possible that it was this extraordinary accident that led to the birth of Alyoshenka 39 years later. The most reasonable version, which rests on obvious arguments rather than fantastic assumptions. Alyoshenka is a premature human fetus with numerous birth defects. The premature baby, most likely 20 to 25 weeks old with numerous developmental abnormalities, was apparently born in the outskirts of Kyshtym, possibly in the village of Kyalinovi itself. Frightened by the appearance of the girl, her mother probably decided to get rid of her and took the body to the cemetery, where Tamara Prosperina found it sometime later. Another plus in favor of the human origin Alyoshenka was found in 2003 in the Chilean desert Akatama 15 cm mummified analog of our alien. Only 15 years later, the results of a study of the genome of the Akatama mummy, conducted by Stanford University scientists led by G. Nolan, appeared. The corpse belonged to a female fetus that died immediately after birth. Multiple gene mutations did not give it the slightest chance of life. Most likely, the pregnant woman had been poisoned by nitrates, since a large sodium nitrate deposit was being mined nearby. Version number 2. In the 1990s, the version about Alyosha's alien origin dominated. Subsequently, it gave way to a scientific version, but even now it is difficult for ufologists to part with their dream. The most important evidence cited by ufologists is the unusually elongated head of the creature. This is what all humanoids allegedly have. There is a monument to the alien Alyosha in the village of Molebka in the Perm region, long considered an anomalous zone since the end of the 18th century. Even on the road sign there is an inscription warning about the anomalousness of this territory. Molebka is a place of annual pilgrimage of tourists, ufologists, and scientists. In the village there are special signs at the areas most loved by UFOs. Strange luminous objects, hovering saucers, flashes, ball lightning visit the village with enviable regularity. The locals erected a monument to Kyshtym Alyoshenka as a sign of respect to everything unidentified. 23 years later, Galina Semenkova, a representative of the strange organization, admitted that the mummy had fallen into her hands, but it was handed over for forensic examination, which confirmed that Alyoshenka was the result of a miscarriage. The location of Alyoshenka's remains is unknown to this day. And there is hardly any hope of finding them. I thank you for watching. Your support is very important to me. Your comments and thumbs up motivate me to release new videos on interesting topics. Subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the new videos.